If you're watching this, I presume it's because you've applied EFT 1 to 5 rounds to your specific movie and you have not noticed results. Let me point out before we get to what might be behind that, an experience that I've had with great frequency, and that is I will apply this to entire audiences, 80, 100, 300, 500 people at a time, and we will do not 5 rounds, but typically 2, 3, or 4 rounds. And when I ask the audience to raise their hand as to how many noticed very positive results, 80% is a bad day. Often it's 90%. That does not mean, however, that just because you did not receive results or notice the results, that you are defective. Believe me. What that means is we need to get behind the process a little bit in your behalf. So let me do that if I may. One of the things that happens with some frequency is that when we ask or suggest that you do a specific movie, the term specific movie means different things to different people. And sometimes that movie needs to be more specific still. So let me give you a little example to put in perspective, because maybe you have some parallel to this that would help you the next time you go back to the earlier part of the video and do the 1 to 5 rounds again. A few years ago, I was giving a workshop, and I applied this to, I think it was about 80 people in the room. And again, 80-90% of the people raised their hands, got positive results. But one gal came up to me at the break who said she did not get any results at all. And so I said, well, okay, what was your movie? And her response was, well, I don't like the appearance of my face. I thought, well, okay, that doesn't seem like a specific movie to me, but to her, you understand, that is specific. And so when I quizzed her on the kind of movie she did, what she did was she just made up a general movie about, her, I mean, she made it up, is what she did, about the appearance of her face that she did not like. Well, that's too global. That's too general, at least for this exercise. We can address that with more sophisticated uses of EFT, but here we want to get down to the experience of it. We want to get down to a very specific movie, and that is not specific enough. So what I did was I queried her a little bit, only to find that there was a time, a very specific time during her younger years, when her mother made some derogatory comment about her face, which has stayed with her all this time, has a difficult time talking about that particular event, specific event, without having some emotion about it. My guess is it's a very core issue underneath the not liking the appearance of her face. But, by the way, I happen to have thought she was a rather attractive lady. She just had some pock marks in her face you had to look very closely at to see. I mean, there would be the specific movie. The time my mother said X about my face when I was 11 years old in the kitchen, right? That would be a very specific movie. Okay. So to the extent your movie needs to be more specific, please do, because that's a very important criteria to have this exercise provide benefits for you. Now, the other thing is something called aspects, which you will get more training on or more education on if you choose to go farther than just this video. Let me illustrate that by an example. Again, a few years ago, a lady came to me, and she had her issue was a fear of being in a car because she had had an accident many years prior, a car accident. And so what we did was, now see, the car accident is a very specific memory. Like the time my car crashed, or I was in a car crash at 3rd and Elm on January 12th, 1994. Okay, that's very specific, isn't it? However, even though that is specific and you can make a specific movie of it, you could still be more specific still in some cases because that movie is made up of aspects. Now, let me tell you what happened here, because this will illustrate this very nicely, and you can draw your own parallels for your own circumstance. What I said to her, or what I asked her was, well, okay, of all the things in that accident, what bothers you the most? And she instantly came up with, oh, the headlights. The headlights. I can still see them coming at me. Oh. Now, she had had nightmares about that, intrusive memories about that. Those headlights had kept her from getting in cars, she could get in cars, but she would be very uncomfortable all the time driving, always looking for, where's the headlights and what's going to come at her next, okay? So we used EFT on the headlights. Even though I can still see those headlights coming at me, even though I have fear of those headlights and so on, all right? And then I made an error, because after we were done, I asked her this question. I said, okay, how do you feel now about the accident? And her response was, oh no, it's no better. It's no better. It's a very intense circumstance for me. And so it appeared as though EFT didn't work, but my mistake was, what I should have done was say, well, how are the headlights now? Which I eventually did. When she zeroed in on the headlights, oh, those aren't any problem. She waved them off as though they were never a problem. And here they were the most intense thing she brought up to begin with. Okay? Well, I said, well, what bothers you about the accident? Oh, the screams in the car. The screams in the car. You see, she shifted aspects from the headlights coming at me to the screams in the car. But to her, and this is what's important to help you with this, is that those two aspects were still part of the same accident. To her, they're all the same thing. And she does not distinguish between headlights and screams in the car because she doesn't have that kind of experience with this yet. To her, it's just the accident's the accident. So then we did some tapping on the screams in the car. Those subsided rather quickly. And as it turns out, there were no more aspects in this case, but there could have been. And so she had resolution on that issue, and it hasn't bothered her. However, just to be clear here and complete, there could be more aspects involved. Things like, anger at the other drivers, for example, or anger at doctors or lawyers or anybody else who may have been involved in the aftermath. So anyway, that gives you a sense of the aspects of it. See, you can shift from piece to piece of it, from aspect to aspect, and not think you're getting results. And so I point that out to you for you to, when you do this again, to look at the different aspects of it. Are you focusing on this thing differently? Is there a different piece of it coming up that wasn't there the first time? Very important to notice, because now you want to tap on that second piece, and then if you need to, that third piece, etc. I'll also say that quite often with an accident or some other traumatic event like that, we can often just do one round for the accident, and that's all we need. It just dissipates from that point forward. All the aspects seem to be get taken up all in one little ball, and we get resolution on it. Now, the other thing I want to mention to you that happens within these movies is sometimes you can start off in a movie having one emotion about it and successfully tap, but then have another emotion about it, and it will not seem as though you've made any headway because it's still a heavy deal for you. For example, you could start on one movie and have great anger about it, and you'll tap and tap and tap with EFT. You'll do a few rounds of it, and if you'll notice, if you'll pay attention, it isn't anger anymore that you have. You now have sadness about it. So you might have originally started off with, even though I have this fear of the da-da-da-da-da, whatever it may be, and the fear subsides. But now if there's sadness, you'll want to start tapping again on, even though I have sadness about the da-da-da-da-da. Okay? And so these are all these little subtleties that come up. In most cases, for most issues, they don't come up. That's why we get 80 or 90% with a whole wide audience of people. For this particular issue, your particular movie, you've fallen in the 10 or 20%. Again, you're not defective, but it's something you need to look at. So, with that in mind, please go back to the previous section on this video, so you can go back and tap along with me 1 to 5 times on that specific memory of yours. Make sure you're specific enough. Make sure you're watching the aspects or the changing emotions.